Welcome, guys, to Where's My Masculinity? We're here for another great conversation. As you can see, we've got a lovely view. This time, I have a brother and sister combination with me. I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name's Kukama.
I am Lerato Sehole, his younger sister, his only sister.
Dear beloved, only sister. Great. So I think if I look at the context of some of the conversations that we've been having, what was important for me for this show is kind of like talk to a brother and sister combination to sort of understand the nuances with which we raise boy children and girl children and how that upbringing has kind of precipitated the kind of masculinity that we see in today's society. So the first question I have is for both of you. At which point did you become conscious of the fact that you're either a boy child or a girl child? And what did that mean for you in terms of what you were allowed to do, what was expected of you versus your brother or your sister? I'll start with you.
Well, I think for me, maybe as we started getting into our, own individual beings, like where we are not just each other's friends, but now he has the chomzahage and I have my friends and he needs to chill with his friends. But for some reason, I need to come back home by a certain time before let's liwela. Kukama hakagena 2 hours later, it's not a problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I'm seen hanging out with certain people, to be like, no, don't hang out with those people. It doesn't matter who he hangs out with, And then obviously it plays out also in terms of chores, Once you are at an age where you can be responsible for something, it's always you will be responsible. At some point we all did the same things, right? But then at some point I ended up doing certain things more than him.
Okay.
Maybe like cooking, right?
Okay.
Or like cleaning.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's when it became. Yeah.
And at which point did you become aware of the fact that, hey, I'm the boy child in this equation, so therefore that entitles me or means 1, 2, 3, 4?
I think it was, when it came to chores, because I'm speaking from my side. I mean, mom would wake us up early. It was me and my cousin to do the garden, and Lagato wouldn't have to do the garden. But obviously then, the other chores in the house when it came to cooking and everything else, Lerato would have to do that. So I think the whole thing about, in terms of distinguishing our genders, we started seeing that through basically in terms of tasks that were basically assigned to us.
And at which point soon after that did you for yourself come to the realization as a person that actually maybe there's a disconnect between what I'm expected as, because I'm the girl child in this family as Lerato, versus what I think is actually the way I should be following and what Kukama should be doing, etc.
When did I realize the disconnect?
Yeah.
I think
if assuming there was one for you,
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it was never a problem.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Although you'd see it, but I think I understood. It made sense in a way, And I think as much as maybe our responsibilities were different or, they treat us differently in certain situations, but I think we all had our fair share.
Yeah.
It wasn't a situation, I'm always on the receiving end. Certain tasks, or certain burdens. For lack of a better word.
Okay.
So it wasn't really much of an issue. I don't even remember us fighting about it or me complaining to my parents, why isn't... No, not that much.
Okay, but there was a situation we had. So remember there's a story like way back. No, it was with my parents actually. Where my sister cried, I remember. Yeah. And it was around... I think mom is expected to do certain things and papa doesn't do certain things. And I think you were probably about Lulu's age. Yeah, she was kind of like my daughter's age, between 8 and 10. And she started realizing, she's like, no, but mom's always doing this and dad's always doing that. Right. And I think, it was something she didn't like. Already as a child, she could see that there was something wrong. You know what I'm saying?
And on that point, how did you, before I come back to, how did you then respond to some of the points that she was raising? Not so much in terms of to your parents, but did that give you a moment of pause?
I don't think so. Because my reaction was, it is what it is. Almost like as a male or as a female, this is the role that you need to play. You know.
Right.
I think as a kid, that's how I saw things and really didn't question much. But I admired what my sister could actually be able to observe and say, hey, there's a disconnect here. Where for me it was normal, man.
And what do you have to say as now
So he's right.
Yeah.
He remembers more of my childhood than I do.
That's why he's a little. That's why he's older.
Yeah.
Brother.
If you ask me questions about my childhood, I'd have to call a friend. I'd be like, hey, am I hanging out? Did I do this when I was 3, 4, 5? You remember. It's true. I think between the two of us, it wasn't that much of an issue. Like, we're siblings, you know?
Right.
I don't think our fights were... we didn't have a lot of fights around how unfairly we treated. You know,
Right.
my mom tried as hard as possible, even though there were certain duties, you know, like garden. I mean, come on, you know, can't be
Right.
out in the sun for
Right.
5 hours, you know.
Right.
He's better suited for it.
Yeah.
But it was never, it was somewhat balanced. You know what I
Got you.
mean? Yes,
Got
our
you.
responsibilities were different, but I had one person that felt overburdened than the other, right? And that's true when it comes to our parents. I think I was very sensitive. I'm generally very sensitive, you know?
Right.
So at that age, even though my mom doesn't complain, my mom, I mean, how often have you heard mama complain? She doesn't complain. But when things are obvious, hi man, you know, mama has been standing up the whole day, you know? I don't think she's getting the appreciation that she should be getting for everything that she does on a daily basis.
Right.
So the response was, I never addressed it. You know, I mean, where do you start in an African home addressing it? But it hurt me, and I told him, and I probably cried about it. You know, and then maybe how I react to it is that I try compensating for what I feel like should be coming from somebody else, maybe from my father. You know, if I feel like maybe somebody should say, "Yo, this food is awesome," almost every day, then let's do it. And my brother was one of those people as well, you know. So that was the response to it, to try compensating for what is not there that should be coming from a certain place. It won't fully make up, you know.
Right.
But it helps in a way. I would hope it helped.
Okay.
Because we didn't speak about it openly in Mama as well. I think I just spoke to you about it. Yeah.
Okay. And you'd mentioned earlier about, certain things that Kukama could get away with that was acceptable because he's the boy and you can't because, you're the girl. How has some of that sort of shaped your own, for lack of a better word, conditioning in terms of the dynamic with males, both in a romantic context, with what you then now expect from certain things about your own dad, your uncles, and the whole relationship you have with masculinity and men? And then as you answer that, my question to you would then be, how has that almost sense of, for lack of a better word, privilege informed the same things when you're then having your various relationships with women in different contexts?
I think it becomes organic behavior because it's under that, right? So naturally you think when it comes to things like Takadini, a man would spot the need to now come and do this and do that and do that more gardening. Naturally I would feel the need to, not because I want to, but to cook more than maybe my partner if I have if I have a partner. Like those are natural, and I think both ways. But it's also not stagnant in the sense that it's not flexible. You also see what's the dynamics between you as partners. If there's somebody who's open to cooking, you're not now gonna say no, I'm the only one who touches the pot, or you can't. I can't go outside, do whatever. You know what I mean? So I think we're flexible. It's shaped us in the sense that you approach relationships in a certain way. But once you start realizing the preferences, the capability of the other person, because I'm suddenly into greenery. I like going into the garden and I don't mind doing something myself. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody who's more in the kitchen, naturally these roles will start blending.
Okay. And for yourself, Kukam?
I think especially how we grew up. As much as there were things that boys would do and girls would do and whatever, my mom also tried her best to just basically keep us very equal, where we'd have a schedule who does, or roster who basically does dishes and whatever. So within, like, let's say within relationships, I mean, I find myself, even at home, even if there's anything like kocha, like musebeti or something, you know, I don't mind being in the kitchen. There's no shame being in the kitchen. There's no shame in, you know, in cleaning the house while my partner's chilling. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think, you know, it's just also how we were conditioned. Yes, I mean, there were obviously in terms of the traditional stuff, but a lot of the times I think my mom tried to make sure that, you know, I know how to cook. Lorato knows how to cook. Yes, the harder stuff like the garden and everything else I'd have to do, but I'm more, it's shaped me into a male who's not afraid to just, you know, do things that would be perceived feminine, you know? Yeah.
With that being said, the interesting thing that comes out with both of you is, you know, this sense of being ultimately very appreciative, I would say, of the upbringing, etc. And I think it's something that a lot of people can identify with. So given where we are today with the state of masculinity, and given the fact that your upbringings are pretty much similar to a lot of kids at that time during that generation, what, in your opinion, then has gone wrong that's led boy children such as Kugama to be grown men that they are today, doing the things that they currently do with GBV and all of that kind of stuff? Where does that disconnect sort of sit?
I think with the disconnect, it's hard to speak about it from a place that's close to home. So if I speak about it, it's going to be just generally from observation, you know. I would say, and I'm not saying it's the cause of it, right? But it's maybe a remedy. It's being exercised so much, you know. I feel like men aren't vocal enough. Okay. Vocal enough in the sense that they're not open about the topic, you know. I think you could sit with women and it's easy for stories to come out. You know, I went through this. Right. This may be an assumption on my part, but I think that men don't have those type of conversations openly and address it. So, for example, if there's men sitting here, maybe somebody is abusive towards their partner or the child or wherever, you know. It could be addressed or mentioned, Mara. It's never. When women we like digging and coming to the root source of it. So how Shebile told me what happened. Okay, what are you going to do about it? This is how we are. We dig. We ask questions. You know, we follow up even. We'll call you and be like, so you know. I feel like the conversations are not, you know, they should be more intense. Gotcha. You know, and more intentional as well. So you know, then what? Okay. Not just, oh, you know, ish, wrong to sharp. Okay. Last month. Why must we talk about it again? No. Yeah. Conversation. So what happened afterwards? You know, did you realize why only saw? You know, because a lot of these things stem from somewhere. You know, I'm not making an excuse for anybody. Sure. It's wrong. Yeah. And even knowing where it stems from will not make it right. But it could maybe impact the chances of you continuing with this over a longer period of time. Once you've done the digging and you've tried understanding, and like, what are all these triggers, you know, that have brought me here? And I think maybe as friends, as a community, as brothers, as sisters, you know, we should dig deeper when it comes to these things.
And what's your take, Gam? What do you think?
I'm actually, as you're talking, I'm trying to reflect, you know, with some, you know, let's say people that you know, you know, just shit, things that have gone like horribly wrong with their partners and everything else. And I think, you know, when we compare now and previously, I mean, previously it used to be a case that, you know, the male used to work and the mother, they'll tell you, Begezel and whatever. and the guy would get away with like a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right, and that was because also you will find, the wife was financially dependent, or the girlfriend on the husband or boyfriend. And right now, I mean, things have changed, where female have opportunities, and obviously that means that some of the things, like if somebody's cheating, if somebody's being abusive or whatever, she's able to leave without actually thinking of, I'm relying on this person financially. And with some of the guys, I mean, it's a case of, because they maybe saw how how their family structures were, and some people might perceive it as if, now this is dysfunctional, you disrespecting me and whatever. And yeah, I think that's where some of the things actually emanate from. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's just a case of, times have changed, and some people don't want it to change, and they have that perception that because you were somebody, they're your partner, you actually own them. And I mean, that's probably a narrative that has kind of like been programmed into them when they were growing up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay. You're touching on a point that I was having a conversation with some friends of mine a couple of days ago. And one of the guy's contention was that he was reading something that was talking about the fact that the boy child is at great risk in South Africa. That boy children don't have the support that they need. They pretty much, quote unquote, are abandoned, etc., etc. So, would you sort of agree with that statement? Yes or no? Looking not only at the context of your own upbringing, but also kind of like what's going on at this point in time.